Hey everybody.
Aloha.
Welcome back to I Am Not That podcast. We had to take a little break, a little bit of a pause because we had to go and get married. We are Mr. and Mrs. Stovall now. So I am your host, Tezra. I'm your co-host, rather, Tezra and
Koa. And here we are. I am not that. Liberating the self from the self.
yes.
We are on location. I guess.
This is how much we love you guys. We just took a mini honeymoon getaway, but we were like, babe, we can just shoot an episode, right? So this is how much we love you guys. We are doing an episode on our honeymoon, our mini honeymoon.
That's right. We are down here in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Which is beautiful.
And yeah. What is it? Virginia?
Virginia.
It's for lovers?
Oh, Virginia is for lovers.
Virginia
yes.
is for lovers. So yes, we are down here, and it is very warm. Actually, if you can tell you're listening to it, then you can't tell by listening. But if you are watching, then you will see that we are glistening out here. Yes. So we're gonna dive on into another episode.
So just to do a recap of our last episode, Colorblind Part 1. What we did was we basically just kind of gave what the true meaning that we felt that people meant when they said that they're colorblind, they don't see skin color, because some people were kind of taking it as offensively, taking umbrage to it. But we were just discussing how it's more of the person saying that they see you more as a person rather than identifying you and judging you by the color of your skin. Not saying that they don't see the actually the physicalness of your body, but just saying that I see past that, and I see your heart, I see that your humanity, I see your beingness.
Yeah, we had there was some context issues, so where some people were trying to mean it positively, other people were like, well, you're trying to say you don't see my blackness? Like that was not what we're going for. So there was a lot of mix-ups in context, and we wanted to even take it even further to even those who feel that they are truly colorblind, in the sense of they don't pay attention to your outer look or your outer appearance. Like, are there even some ways that you could expand that actually and to be more inclusive? So we really delve in on that on the first part, and we're going to revisit that on the second part. But today we have another show for you, a new show for you, and this one is entitled You're the Proof. Mm-hmm. You're the Proof. Okay, so we're going to get into what all that means. And yes, but we're going to start off with our quote of the day.
So the quote for this show is by Audre Lorde, and she said, "If I didn't define myself for myself, I would be crunched into other people's fantasies for me and eaten alive." Audre Lorde.
Yeah, I like that.
So for me, I like that quote because we have to first know ourselves, know who we are, and getting to know who we are requires some work. It requires that inner work. But once you do that inner work, then we won't be crunched by other people's fantasies of who we are, because we know who we are. And so by making your statement of who you are, by standing firm and bold and loud in who you are, you're telling people who you are. So you're not giving them room, to create their own fantasies of who you are, or to create their own, mental constructs of who you are. So when you know who you are, you don't have to prove who you are. And that's basically why we titled this You're the Proof, because we understand, and by hearing conversations and by also having conversations with people, there are a lot of us who feel like we have to prove ourselves to people. And we waste so much energy in doing that. And when we feel like we have to prove ourselves to people, or when we get into the drama of proving ourselves to people, we move further and further away from ourselves. So the idea is that knowing who you are, if I know who I am and you know who you are, then there's no need, there is no strife, there is no conflict there, because we're both are standing strongly, bold, loud in who we are. But you can only do that if you truly know who you are. And in truly knowing who you are, that means you have gotten to that level of self-love. You have gotten into that level of self-confidence. You have gotten into that level of self-knowing. You have come into that space of self-ownership of it all, the good and the bad. See, when we get to know ourselves, we can't shun the things that we don't like about ourselves and only embrace the things that we do like about ourselves, because that cheats the process, and we don't arrive at the destination that we want to arrive at, which was like knowing and standing in our truth of who we are. So we have to take it all together, the good and the bad, embrace it all. And it's not about, judging yourself. It's not about criticizing yourself. Yeah, there is improvement. So when you notice something that is short-sighting yourself, then that's a part of you that you can work on. That's a part of you that you bring special attention and special awareness to. Like for me, mine is patience. I struggle in that department. I know, and I've come to know, that I'm a very impatient person. And so when that impatience little monster starts to rise up in me, I have to be very aware of, okay, this is the impatience monster. So just relax. We're going to get through this. We're just going to take this moment by moment. And it may entail things and using tools of just living in the moment, because when you live in the moment, then you're just in the moment and you're not rushing to the next moment, which is where the impatience comes in to play. So like things like that, just realize where you're short-sighted, realize the areas that you want to improve upon, and then just bring awareness to that. And by bringing awareness to it, that means when it starts to rise up, say, uh-oh, ding, 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 here it is. What am I going to do with it? See, every time it rises up, it's an opportunity for us to practice. It's an opportunity for us to begin to conquer, that thing in us that we may not necessarily like. So just embrace it all and shut up the voice of criticism in your head, the voice of judgment in your head. Just shut up. Just tell it to shut up. Just shut up. Simple as that. And so improving ourselves, it's like if somebody comes up to you, here's one great example that my husband doesn't know that I'm going to use. Guys, I just said my husband, like we are married. So funny. It's all so awesome. Funny in a very like loving, awesome, unbelievable way. Like, oh my God, we're married. But anyway, so my husband is a great example for me, because he oftentimes does not fight and argue in order to prove himself or prove a point. So here's my example. So one day we're driving, and in New York City, and in other cities too, when you go to the crosswalk, sometimes there's that thicker white line that sometimes it extends all the way across the street to indicate where a driver should stop. And then in New York, it extends halfway across the street, I guess just to show where the cars who are parallel parking, where they can't go past. So by our house is a thick white line. I thought the thick white line spread all the way across the street. But Cole was like, no, it goes halfway. I'm like, no, it goes all the way across the street. And he was like, okay, it goes all the way across the street, no problem. Didn't have an attitude, was not upset, agitated. We just moved on to the next moment, kept going on with our afternoon or whatever we were doing. We got home. He went upstairs, I think, before me, and I looked at the street, and sure enough, the thick white line was halfway. So that is like an excellent example of not having to prove yourself. You know what you know. And when you know what you know, either it will be revealed or it won't. But either way, you know what you know. So don't get so obsessed in righteousness and being stuck in righteousness. We just got married this past weekend, and so my family, my mom was here, and I found myself being stuck in my righteousness with my mom. Like I found myself, having the need to be right, or having the need to prove her wrong. So just be very aware of that. And so when I brought that attention to what I was doing, I'm like, oh, Tezra, here it is. You're being stuck in your righteousness. So by being stuck in our righteousness, we will feel like we have to prove ourselves at every turn of the corner. And that means we will constantly find ourselves in a strife or a conflict or some sort of argument because we're so committed to proving ourselves. And when you prove yourself, you don't have to prove your self-worth. You just be your self-worth. And that speaks to people. So if somebody tries to downplay you, well, your self-worth speaks, resoundingly to know that, what, that's what you want to think, that's fine. But my self-worth is not dependent on your opinion of me. My self-worth lies and dwells within me in the way of self-love, in the way of self-confidence, of knowing that I'm a part of everything. So there is another example that I had that I never forgot this. And I don't know why this struck me so, but I was in college, and I may have told you guys this before, I'm not sure. But I was in college, and I was dating this guy. He was like an Omega. And we went to an Omega party. So I guess the girl that he was dating, like his main chick, I guess that she was because I was on another campus and he was, from a different campus. And I guess she was on the same campus as him. So maybe they were on a pause or something. I don't know. But anyway, so I was there and, and all of a sudden she comes out of nowhere. It was at the end of the party. And so she comes out of nowhere. And then, of course, there was like, arguments ensued and she was fussing at him. And then she says, what, you don't do this because I'm a lady. You don't treat me like this because I'm a lady. And all I kept thinking in the midst of all of this was that, well, if you're a lady, you don't have to scream it. You just be it. It just shows. And then a person will treat you according to what they see. So again, and screaming, I'm a lady, that means you're trying to prove to someone that, you're a lady.
Right.
So it's like, no, you don't have to prove it to anyone. All you have to do is just be it. I have one more example. A girlfriend of mine was on a plane and she went to go sit next to a gentleman, and I think he called her out of her name. I think he called her a bitch. I don't think he called her a black bitch, but I think he just called her a bitch. And so she took that as a racist inflammatory remark. So she got highly upset, visibly upset, trying to relay to the flight attendants who did not speak English, the reason why she could not sit next to this gentleman who had just called her the B word. So it was a big, to do and a big scene. But here's the thing. One, be aware of your energy. Be aware of how you feel about yourself, how you think about yourself, how you view yourself in every scenario that you're in. Because at any moment, if you feel less than or if you feel intimidated, check yourself and say to yourself, okay, I see that I'm feeling this way. Let me step back into my space of self-confidence, self-knowing, knowing that wherever I am, that is where I belong, knowing that I am a part of everything, that I am separate from nothing, knowing that no one is above or below me. Coach yourself to get back into that space, because if you don't, then what happens is that energy begins to boomerang from your energy, and then you begin to experience, wherever your energy is. And so if you're in a space of energy of, what is this person, I'm just going to say, for instance, I use HM a lot, which is high melanin, but I'm just going to use black woman. So if I'm in a space of, okay, I'm like the only black woman on this plane, or I'm a black woman about to sit next to this white man, and so there's a little bit of, discomfort there. Well, I may create an experience of discomfort. And so in that situation, that is exactly what happened. But even if a person calls you out your name, are you that? Do you know yourself not to be that? Because if you know yourself not to be that, then it's like, okay, I'm sorry that your mind is on that, lower level. I'm sorry that you're living in such a negative space, but, I hope you enjoy your flight. Excuse me, may I have my seat? And so that is you retaining and maintaining your power. And then guess what? That other person is going to shift, whether they want to admit it or not, but they're going to shift, because they're going to see that they did not shake you. They're going to see that they did not strip you of your power. And so therefore it kind of puts them into check, and not just for you, but for other people that he may come in contact with that look like you. It could teach that person, a lesson as well. So when you stand in your power, you not only are standing in your truth, but you are also lessons for other people. And that is, so when somebody says something to you and you do take great umbrage, like you do take great offense to it, why is that? Is it because you think that they may possibly be right about you? Is it because you lack self-confidence in whatever they're talking about? Guru Muktananda once said, self-doubt is a vicious plunderer of joy. So if you are having self-doubt, then you are keeping yourself away from your happiness, because you are not believing that you are worthy. You are not believing in your greatness. So self-doubt is a vicious plunderer of joy. So kick self-doubt out. Don't let self-doubt steal your joy. If someone says something to you that could be insulting to you, and this is where Don't Take It Personal from the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Don't take it personal. This is where this comes into play. Don't take it personal. You don't have anything to prove. If somebody says you're dumb as rocks, are you going to get upset? Or do you know your intelligence? Now, I may get upset if I really do believe myself to be dumb as rocks, and I'm mad that somebody else knows that too now, because that's something I may be ashamed of. So I may get upset. But if I know I'm highly educated, if I know I'm articulate, if I know that I can handle myself in any crowds, in any sort of conversations, well, that's not necessarily dumb as rocks.
Right.
So, okay, so you think I'm dumb as rocks. Yay for you. Yay. Okay. Are you happy? Because I'm going to go about my way and you can go about yours. And I hope you have a better day. So that is what I really have the thoughts on when it comes to not having to prove yourself. Stand in your power. You don't have nothing to prove to anyone, because you are divine supreme energy, and Mother Nature's supreme energy does not waste time on proving herself. Even when there's something that goes wrong that the masses of us do not like, she doesn't have to answer to us, and she doesn't. She keeps on doing what she's doing because she knows what she's doing. And then we see in the end, oh, okay, actually it did turn out okay. When we thought it was going to be a disaster, we were actually okay, So, so just stand in your supreme divinity.
Excellent. Very, very well put, and excellent points. I'm going to continue and piggyback off of that a bit, getting maybe into some, it's interesting when you start talking about how do you do that, because we're all individuals with our own styles, our own ways of doing things. So the how will shift from person to person, but I'm going to keep it very general, and then you can get specific with yourself in your own life. One of the challenges in what my wife was saying one of the challenges in just staying in your power is the society around us. It varies from country to country, area to area, but in general, I'm speaking to our culture, the American culture, or just the big city culture, or not like off in the woods where they don't have the internet. We're talking about cultures that we have to interact in a certain kind of way, and the society has all these rules and all these different ways that they come at you with propaganda and all that good stuff. How do we own our power? How do we, you know yourself? How do you stay in that space and not get sucked into this having to prove yourself? It really boils down to practice. And how you practice, that's what I mean, will be from a certain person to another person. It may be through your meditation, it may be through just all different kinds of methods. But it takes being aware and then practicing. We're in a culture, in a society where they teach us a lot of fear. They show a lot of fear, so it's not that easy to be so in your power just out of the gate. Many of us have taken on a lot of insecurities, a lot of different practices of fear, so we get into this thing where we want to prove ourselves because there's some kind of insecurity there, or some kind of not really knowing yourself fully, or the self that you feel is not that strong yet, or you're still a work in progress in that. So one of the ways you can really begin to own your power, stand in it, and feel like you don't have to prove anything to anyone, when they're in your face saying certain things like Tez said, saying that you're dumb as rocks or something, and for a fact that you're not. There's still a lot of times that insecurity and all this stuff these labels that we've picked up on and just soaked up from our society that makes us feel like we have to prove something. Even if we know we're smart, we still get caught up in it. So it really takes finding a practice that works for you. It doesn't have to belong to any particular, the Eastern or the Western, it doesn't make a difference. A lot of times just breathing and taking time to just breathe. There's one that I like to use. It just kind of uses some different words, because your mind is always so jumping around. It's called monkey mind. It's always jumping around from one thing to another. Did I leave the lights on? Oh, I have an appointment tomorrow. Oh, man, I didn't even do laundry. I don't have any underwear. It's always bouncing and bouncing and bouncing. So when it comes to being very still and just breathing, you tend to wander, So sometimes that's why they have mantras in some traditions, to give your mind something to be into while you're doing these exercises. So if you don't want to utilize one that's known already, or an Eastern one, or this kind of one, or whatever indigenous culture, even some things just like giving your mind words to say while you breathe, to focus on your breath. Like you breathe in, it's just in, out, rise, fall, in, out, just to give your mind something to focus on that involves the breathing aspect of it, just so you can get your body and to a different level of health, a different vibration, and give yourself mantras. I know myself, I don't have to prove myself. I know myself, I don't have to prove myself. There's different mantras you can just be creative and come up with, but we have to begin to practice things that involve being in our power. Because it's not besides the fear part, there's so many things that our culture teaches us, even guilt. Guilt is a big one. It's taught, sometimes it's taught through religion, but other times it's just taught in the society in other ways. People feel guilty, just about expressing joy, just being guilty about expressing love. Even in some instances, dancing is like that's no good. It depends on the culture and depends on what we're talking about. But different sources will apply guilt to a lot of things that should seem like there's nothing to feel guilty about. there's guilt associated in such subtle ways you don't even realize it. If you're from a big city, we're from New York, if you're from a city, what do you think about if you're on the sidewalk or walking down the street or on a bus or something like that, and a person is just laughing to themselves? Like, that's, like, he's a weirdo. Like, what's wrong with that person? Like, we have this automatic, something's like, you can't even sit by yourself and just laugh out loud without it being something, wrong or weird. It's just, that's the kind of society we have. So there's a lot of things built in that I feel that we have to not combat against, but kind of overcome and be who we want to be, regardless of all these teachings. And it's so ingrained and sometimes so subtle that all you can do is practice something new, practice being in a different kind of mindset, different kind of space. So yeah, that was the one key I wanted to hit on, because we move away from some of the most basic things that you find in children, but we think when we're adults we're not supposed to do that. Like, we're serious, we don't play as adults. It sounds ridiculous. Like, I don't got time to play, I got bills to pay. I understand we have real life things to do, but we have to get back into joy and just practicing these things that will open up our change our vibration, open up our hearts more, and just have us vibrating at a healthier space. I feel like these kind of practices and getting back to some of those basics will help you to feel more powerful and help you to really start to feel a good sense about who you are, and then you can get into those practices of not proving yourself. You feel good about yourself. You feel confident, So, yeah, you want to jump in on?
Yeah, I have another example that popped into my mind. So, our daughter, her brother had told her that she didn't know her alphabets. And when I say our daughter, is my bonus child now. So she didn't know her brother said, he's always taunting her. You know how big brothers do. You big brothers out there, you should stop it. But so he was taunting her, telling her that she didn't know her ABCs. Now she's in the 4th grade, and she's reading, so obviously she knows her ABCs. So a lot of the times I don't get involved when they get into little spats. I was in the bedroom and I heard them out in the living room. So all of a sudden I heard her fussing and rumbling, and then I heard papers shuffling and something like that. And so then she came into the room and she had her ABCs written out. So I said, what's that? She says, oh, because she already knows me. So she knew, that I was not going to approve of her, trying to prove herself against her brother. So she says, oh, it's nothing. I was just drawing. I was like, yeah, but these are ABCs. And she said, oh, I know, but I just wanted to just write them down. I'm like, why? But you already know them. And when she's like, yeah, but Jaden said that I didn't know my ABCs.
She cracked.
So I'm like, yeah, she cracked. So Jaden says that I don't know my ABCs. And I said, so you wrote your ABCs down to prove to him that you know your ABCs? And she was like, yeah. And so I was like, why do you feel like you have to prove yourself? Well, because he says, I don't know them. I was like, but do you know your ABCs? She says, yes. I said, do you know that you know your ABCs? And she says, yes. I said, well, you don't have to prove anything to your brother. As long as you know that you know your ABCs, who cares what your brother thinks? And so she was like, I was like, so can we crumble up that piece of paper? And she said, yes. And so she crumbled up the piece of paper and threw it in the trash and went on about her way. So yeah, but I like 2 points that you have brought up. One is the media propaganda of, constantly keeping us in a place of fear. Because guess what? When you live in a space of fear, then you're so busy being fearful that you're not even paying attention to your own inner strength and your own inner power. Because once you step into that, you become fearless. And that is not what.
Yeah, and let me just throw in there, when it's being thrown at you, all that fear, that is where you get your uncertainty. You're afraid, so you're uncertain.
And that's self-doubt, which is the vicious plunderer of joy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so, it's unfortunately, for some reason, those behind the curtain, they know if we as mass society They know that if we begin to become fearless, when we begin to step into our power, and we say this over and over and over again, and we will continue to until we get one person that says, yeah, okay, I get it. I am stepping into my power without apology, unabashedly, I am stepping into my power. Because what happens is they prey on our fear, and they capitalize on our fear, and they keep us divided and separated through our fear. And then this is why we keep seeing events happen over and over, where it looks like one group of people is oppressing another group of people. But when we all begin to step into our power together, and we become enlightened together, then those type of events will eventually begin to disappear and fade away, and we come together in unity. We come together in unity behind our diversity. Because like we said before, what we see on the exterior, we're all just crayons in a box. And we're here to create a beautiful, colorful, picturesque, world for ourselves and for our children. But if we are staying in a space of fear, of needing to prove ourselves, when they say that we're one thing, but we know that we're not, and you must realize that I am not what you're telling me. When you know who you are, when you are being who you are, not one word is necessary.
That's right.
I can add one more point. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's actually behind the curtain. Those you're talking about, that's actually their fear. Their fear is that you come into your power, that we start to see, the similarities of one another as far as just being beings, that are having a human experience. That we start to see the connection between us. That'll make the game crumble. That means nobody will want to play anymore. We won't be going for the nonsense. So it's like there's a lot invested into keeping that division and keeping that fear pumping out constantly, because we lose what we feel is the most important thing for us, the control, the power, and all that good stuff that they love to do, like to have.
And I have another example. So I'm a manager at a very well-known, actually internationally known restaurant in Harlem. And so we get all kinds of customers who just want to give us the damnedest of times, who just had a bad day and just want to come into the restaurant and share their bad day with the rest of the staff. And then we also have wonderful, beautiful customers, who bring all of their happiness and joy and excitement to finally be there. This is like the pinnacle for them. So you just get like an array of guests, as in any business, I suppose. But so a lot of the times my servers will have a table that they're having a very difficult time with, when the table either doesn't want to adhere to the restaurant's policy, or they have eaten 3/4 of their food, but now they're saying they didn't like it, So naturally, the server will come get the manager. And so when I'm the manager on duty, so before I even walk to the table, without ego, without in my power, like, yes, I'm the powerful manager, what I say goes. Not that, but just knowing who I am and knowing my strength, that when I walk to the table, when I approach the table, 9.5 times out of 10, all I have to say is, I'm sorry, but we can't do whatever. And the guests at the table are totally fine with it. Oh, okay, well, thank you for coming by to, just to let us know, or thank you for coming by, to chat with us or whatever. So when you and this is what I was saying about, you don't need to say a word. You don't need to prove. I don't have to prove that I'm the manager and I have the final say so. I don't have to prove that. But when I am in my power, that speaks for itself. So 9.5 times out of 10, when I go to a table, the decision is already made. And the situation is already handled.
Right. Coming from with just respect, and because
absolutely,
it's already that I'll have the final say. I don't have to have the I don't have to have that energy vibrating so the person feels belittled or else like they're being talked down to.
Right.
It's just, this is just how we operate here, and
Yeah.
we appreciate you coming by.
And they don't, and you know, it's not like they get offended like, oh, she's a bitch of a manager or nothing like that. Like they see the pleasantry, you know, and they see, yeah, they feel exactly more so. They feel the pleasantry, they feel the hospitableness of it, you know. But unfortunately, and you know, there's another trick in the restaurant industry that, you know, you say no without saying no, but but you know, at the end of the day, the point is that when you stand in your power, when you stand in your truth, when you walk in that, people feel that, they know it when you approach them, and so they respond to you, you know, differently.
Yep.
So yeah, so going back to our quote, let's see if it lands a little differently after exploring what it means when you no longer have to prove yourself to people. So instead of taking that energy and proving yourself to people that I am not that or I am this, take that energy and just start working on yourself. And like Koa said, the practices, you know, the mantras. I love the mantras because, you know, even if you are, you know, walking down the street, you know, and you say to yourself just over and over, I am worthy, I am loved, I am, you know, of value, whatever that is, you know, just write it down and just say it over and over and sit in stillness and quiet. And if you need your mind to focus on something, you know, focus on that. You know, the breathing that Cole was talking about, the in, out, rise, fall, I am worthy, I am love. Just get really quiet because, guys, that's where the magic begins.
Yes.
That is the genesis of the magic. It's in the stillness and in the quiet. So, the quote by Audre Lorde: if I didn't define myself for myself, I would be crunched into other people's fantasies of me and eaten alive.
Jumping from one foot to the other, trying to please or hoping somebody sees you in the light that you want them to see you in, rather than I already know what it is. So it's okay that you see that. I know, so I'm good.
So let's no longer be crunched by other people's fantasies of us. Let's figure out who we are. Let's know who we are.
And practice that.
And practice
Repeat,
that.
practice that. Yeah.
So thank you for tuning into our YouTube channel, or thank you for tuning into the podcast and listening. We love you. We're so excited for future episodes. It's like after we got married, we feel like a runaway freight train now. It's just like we're just plowing ahead with our message and with our calling. And and want you all to come along and get behind us, and let's take ourselves to another level. Let's continue to make this shift.
Absolutely.
Of togetherness.
Namaste.
Namaste.
One more time.
Yay! See you later.